Hey boys and girls, my name is Oishi Gaming and welcome back to another TFT guide video. Today I'm going to be showing you the best compositions for patch 10.10 of TFT. This guide will cover how to itemize your comps as well as the champions you'll need in the comps. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now for the first comp we're going to be looking at that has been dominating the 10.10 TFT meta, it is going to be Chrono Kale. Essentially, why this comp has been dominating the 10.10 meta is because Bramble Vest has become such an optimized defensive item for everyone to run. Because of Irelia, because of Jinx, because of Shredder Xayah, all of these champion carries like to use Last Whisper and IE. With more and more of these new carries relying on crit damage as their main source of damage, Bramble Vest has become now a top tier item. Now, what this has to do with Chrono Kale is that Chrono Kale relies heavily on magic damage, and essentially this counters Bramble Vest, so this is why Chrono Kale has been coming up in the meta. Now, the best items for Kale in this comp is RFC, Rapid Fire Cannon, Guinsoo's Rage Play, and GA. Essentially on Kale, you want as much attack speed and AP as possible. Guinsoo's gives you AP and attack speed, RFC gives you attack speed and attack range, and then on top of that, GA allows you to have a second chance at life. You can go for QSS if you want to, if you're seeing a lot of comps with a lot of CC. Like I said before, AP items work really well on Kale, so if you want to build Morellos, if you want to build Rabadons, if you want to build Hand of Justice as well, which is also a good item on her, these are all really good substitutes. For the secondary carry of this build, you're going to want a Miss Fortune. Now, the item that you want to prioritize most on Miss Fortune is the QSS because she has a channeled ulti. What this means is that if she does get CC'd halfway through her ulti, it will just stop completely. So you need that QSS to stop her from getting CC'd. So for the two offensive items that I have put down Seraph's Embrace to give her 30 mana to help her ult quicker, and on top of that Morello's to do damage based on the enemy's HP. Other good items on MF include Spear of Shojin, Rabadons, Jeweled Gauntlet, just anything that improves AP damage and helps her get mana faster. With Thresh being in this comp, you want units with really good ultimates to be on your bench. I would suggest Lulu, Soraka, Wukong and Blitzcrank. They all have really effective ultis. Blitzcrank is a really hard CC on one enemy unit. Wukong stuns a lot of people. Soraka is an ulti heal to your whole team. And then Lulu CCs 2 enemy units or 4 enemy units depending on if she's 1 star or 2 star. In this comp, make sure Thresh and Caston are positioned to attack different enemy units because they are both mana reavers, and whoever they attack, it increases their mana cost by 40%. So you want them attacking separate targets, so they're increasing the mana cost of 2 enemy units as opposed to 1. Other items that you can build in this comp are red buff on Ezreal to stop enemy healing, and then on top of that you can build Bramble Vest on any of the frontline tanks. Now for the next composition that we're going to be looking at, it is Brawler Blasters. This is another S tier comp for patch 10.10. It has been dominating the 10.10 TFT meta, with Jinx being such a strong carry. One question that does get asked a lot is, why do people run Graves over Lucian? Shouldn't I prefer a 2 cost unit over a 1 cost unit when I have the chance? Well, the reason why people prefer Graves over Lucian is because of Graves' ultimate. Essentially, Graves' ultimate will target the carry or the enemy champion with the most attack speed and then stop their auto attacks from hitting for a couple of seconds. And this is so crucial because a lot of the carries do have the highest attack speed because you're building attack speed items on them. So if he hits an Irelia, if he hits a Xayah, that will stop their auto attacks for 3 to 4 seconds, which is insane. That is like no damage for 3 to 4 seconds from an enemy carry champion, which is so much better than Lucian's ultimate of just dashing with an extra auto attack. Now, moving on to itemization, the way you're going to want to itemize Jinx in this comp is by putting a defensive item on her, either a GA, Trap Claw, or QSS, and then 2 offensive items. My favorites are Giant Slayer and Last Whisper, or Infinity Edge and Last Whisper. Those are both really good ways to build Jinx. Make sure when positioning in this comp that you have the Blitzcrank right next to the Jinx, so that way when Blitzcrank pulls an enemy unit, Jinx can kill it and get an auto attack speed buff from killing an enemy unit. And usually that unit will be squishy because Blitzcrank pulls it from the backline, so it just makes it easier for Jinx to get her ulti buff. The other champion you're going to itemize for is going to be the Miss Fortune. I know in this composition I prefer Rabadons over Morello, but that's just because of the fact that in Blasters you're usually going to have a red buff, which does what Morello does anyway. So instead I put a Rabadons on Miss Fortune to optimize the damage. So the way you're going to build MF is to get a QSS to stop the CC, Seraph's Embrace to help her ult quicker, and then Rabadons for the extra boost in damage. Miss Fortune is really strong in the meta right now with Chrono Kale and Brawler Blasters being top comps, so make sure you look out for her. Just one more tip before I stop talking about Brawler Blasters. When positioning, you should position your Vi and Blitzcrank on the same side. What this does is that most people when positioning against Blitzcrank will put a decoy unit behind their enemy carry. So Blitzcrank will pull this decoy unit and it will leave their carry untouched. However, now that the decoy unit has been pulled in, the new furthest unit will be the carry, and that's where Vi comes in. Vi can ulti the carry if it's the furthest unit away. So having Vi and Blitzcrank on the same side is really important. I know that's a pretty hard explanation and it's hard to show in this video, but just make sure you put your Vi and Blitzcrank on the same side. It really works out really well. For the next composition we're going to be looking at, it is Shredder Xayah. This comp has also been dominating and has been one of the new hyper roll comps that have been up and coming. And even though in 10.10 Xayah did get a small nerf to her attack damage, it is still a strong comp. The way you want to itemize Xayah in this comp is with a defensive item such as GA, QSS, or Trap Claw, and then 2 offensive items. I really like Last Whisper and IE, and a lot of people do. However, in this patch, Deathblade did get buffed. So if you want to run Deathblade over IE, that works out really well too. I forgot to put this on the chart before, so it is now updated, but 2 other items that are really good on this comp are ZZ Rot on the Jarvan and Frozen Heart on the Econ. ZZ Rot works really well because when you 3-star the Jarvan, essentially what is going to happen is going to create a 3000 health decoy to decoy for the Xayah as she auto attacks. And on top of that, Frozen Heart is really good on Rakan because he goes dashing everywhere, and everything relies on attack speed now. So Chrono Kale relies on attack speed, Jinx, Brawler Blasters relies on attack speed, so Frozen Heart is really strong in this patch. Just to make sure, if you don't know how to play this comp or any hyper roll comp for that matter, essentially you wait till the stage 3-1, not leveling up at all and just saving your money. Then at this stage you reroll down hard for your 1-cost units, as the percentage of getting 1-cost units is really high, and then you 3-star them at that stage. The 3-star units that you want to get in this comp are Jarvan, Caitlyn, and Xayah, as well as Fiora, but if you don't get her, you can always sub her in with an Irelia later, so if you don't get the 3-star Fiora, don't worry too much. Just one more tip before I go, J4 does give an auto attack speed buff to approximately everyone within 2 hexes of him. So make sure that Xayah is within 2 hexes of him, because Xayah relies heavily on that auto attack speed buff. Now the next 2 comps I'm going to show you are changes of old variations of comps that I just wanted to show you in this 10.10 meta. This comp is called Fizz Khazix, or at least that's what I like to call it, or Fizz Khazix. And essentially the carry of this comp is going to be the Khazix. Now this comp is also a hyper roll comp, and you're going to be hyper rolling for Malphite, TF, and the Khazix. Khazix does such a great job of destroying the enemy backline, and since a lot of carries nowadays are backline and there's not many infiltrator carries, you're going to want to use Khazix as a really good carry in this comp. The way you're going to want to itemize Khazix is that you're going to want to put an IE on him for that extra damage burst, or a Deathblade. They work out really well as interchangeable items. GA to give him that second lease on life in case he does die, and RFC. The reason why you want RFC is because in the late game, everything sort of clumps together, or there's a lot of huge clumps in the late game team fights, and it makes it hard for Khazix to get to units because he only has that melee attack range. With the RFC, he won't spend as much time just walking around doing nothing, so make sure you get that RFC on him. The other carry for this comp is going to be your Vel'Koz, and like Misfortune, he does have a channeled ultimate, so he can't be CC'd during it, otherwise it will be stopped. So you're going to want a QSS on him, and you want him to ult as fast as possible, so you want a Seraph's Embrace, and then on top of that you're going to want an AP damage items. Morello, Rabadons, Jeweled Gauntlet, anything will work. Like I said before in the Shredder Xayah comp, having a ZZ Rot portal on a 3-star unit, it is so strong now, so make sure if you do 3-star the Malphite, you get a ZZ Rot onto him, and also build a Bramble Vest on him because of the fact that there is a lot of crit damage in this meta. Also, one thing that I like to do is I like to build a Frozen Heart on the Fizz. This is because that he'll be jumping to the backline along with the Khazix, and since all the carries are going to be there, it is going to slow the attack speed of all the enemy carries. This comp is relatively new, so I'm going to try and give you a step-by-step process on how to build it really quickly, because I do need to cover other comps. So the way you're going to build this is you're going to want to get TF, Khazix, and Malphite. Those are your 3 priority units that you want to get 3-starred. Then after that, you add in a Blitzcrank for Chrono with the TF, and then Brawler with the Malphite. Then after that, you're going to want an Infiltrator and eventually replace that Infiltrator with the Fizz, because you're not going to get a Fizz straight off the bat because you're going to be lower leveled. So put in a Shaco, put in a Kai'Sa for the time being. Then after that, put in a Fizz. Then after that, when you level up, if you can, try and find the Void buff as quickly as possible and then fill up the Brawlers in. Just one more positioning tip before I go. Make sure you put Vel'Koz somewhat close to the front and not all the way to the back line, so that his ulti can hit as many units as possible. If you put him in the back line, his ulti may not reach the furthest units in the back line of the enemy team, so make sure you take that into account. Now for the last build we're going to be looking at, it is the Jhin carry build. Now before I show you this build is not super meta, and Jhin is not even a super meta carry right now. But because of that, it is going to leave a lot of space for you to pick up the Jhins without being contested. So this is the reason why I wanted to show this comp. There used to be a variation of this comp where you run 4 Vanguard over the Demolitionist trait with Gangplank and Rumble, but due to the fact that Gangplank is so strong in the meta right now, and 2 Vanguard did get a buff in 10.9, people prefer this variation of the comp. The reason why this comp is also a bit stronger is that Karma did get an attack speed buff on her ulti, so when she shields Jhin, Jhin will be doing more damage as opposed to previous patches. Now the items that you're going to want on Jhin are GA as the defensive item, as it gives him more AD, as well as the fact that it gives him that second lease on life. And then on top of that, you're going to want IE and Last Whisper. These are both 2 really good items on him. Helps him crit more. Last Whisper cuts through the armor. It's just really good on Jhin. Some people make the argument that you could build a BT on Jhin as it helps his healing. However, if you do have Lulu and Ashe, you get the Celestial buff, which allows him to heal for 15% of the damage he does. And if you know the Jhin and how Jhin works, Jhin does insane amounts of damage, and 15% of the damage that he deals will be way more than enough to heal him back almost to full health majority of the time on his 4th shot. So you do not need a BT. The items for Gangplank that you're going to want to prioritize are definitely GA to make sure he gets that ulti off, and then on top of that, any AP damage items you can get, usually Ionic Spark and Rabadons. The reason why you want Ionic Spark is because it lowers the magic resist of the enemy team whenever they ulti, and then Rabadon just boosts AP damage by so much. Other items that are good to build in this comp are Bramble Vest for any of the frontline tanks, as well as any mana items you can get on Lulu. Usually Saros Embrace or Spiro Shojin will work really well on her, and then if you get a 2-star, she can ulti and then polymorph so many of the enemy team units. That has been it for my favorite comps of patch 10.10 of TFT. If you enjoyed the video and learned something from it, feel free to like the video, and if you want updates on my future content, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.